Hi, everyone. I am Kelly, and this is Vote Her In, the first Vote Her In live. Vote Her In is a collaboration between Two Broads Talking Politics and author Rebecca Sive. This is our first post-election episode for either Two Broads or Vote Her In, so it is a super duper exciting time, and we are all quite basking in the glow right now. So I am going to turn it over to Rebecca to introduce our two guests now.
Well, welcome everybody, and I have to say, I don't. We all can't see each other, but the feeling is we're jumping up and down. But also, as Jessica noted, thinking about what's coming in front of us, right? And to that end, when I was thinking about what we ought to do in the Voter In series after the election, assuming we would have our first woman vice president, as well as a great new president, Joe Biden. I thought it would be really helpful and important to all of us to think about and talk with the women artists among us about how they see the feminist art that they do and its messages and its distribution around, and how that contributes to this, has contributed to what we've accomplished in these last couple years, and also will contribute going forward. And I have the fortunate position of being able to pick the people, and I thought, well, who better to start with than our guests this evening, Chandler O'Leary and Jessica Spring, who are amazing artists, amazing publishers. They do a series of broadsides of amazing women we're going to talk about called Dead Feminists, and they are coming to us this evening from Tacoma, I think is right, and we are coming from Chicago, and we are hugging all the women around and between us as we gather together. So we're going to spend some time talking with Jessica and Chandler about their work. And what happened?
Oh, we still have you, Rebecca.
Okay, good. What? We're going to be talking about their work, and it's how they see it. And so I wanted to begin with asking them to share how they came to this idea as artists that they wanted to do political art. And as they do that, I think Kelly's going to share some of the images of broadsides they've done in this Dead Feminist series, just so you all can get a better feel for what it is they're doing. So Jessica and Chandler, if you could just go for it here.
Yeah, and let me know when you want me to put the images up.
Okay. I would say to think that we planned that we wanted to be political artists would not really describe our process. It started, we really blame Sarah Palin, if you want to blame anybody. So I was in Tacoma, and Chandler moved here, and I was really frustrated with the election and how there's all this discussion of Sarah Palin's glasses, what she was wearing, her lipstick, everything but the actual issues at hand. And I got so frustrated with it.
This is the 2008 election, if
right.
anybody is not clear.
So I was super frustrated, and I had found this amazing quote by Elizabeth Cady Stanton that goes, "Come, come, my conservative friend, wipe the dew off your spectacles and see the world is moving." And it just struck me. It was so perfect that we finally had a woman, and we weren't talking about what we needed to be talking about. So I shared my frustration with Chandler, an amazing illustrator, and said, "Could you draw Sarah Palin's glasses?" And that's really how the whole series started. We didn't know it would be a series. So Chandler not only drew the glasses, she drew all of the text. I have a little tiny postcard version here of this is our first print in 2008. And so we published it. I think we did 44 copies.
Yep, for the 44th president.
It sold immediately, and we're like, wow, that totally worked. Look what happened. and that's really how the series started.
And we never, as Jessica said, we never thought this would be a series. We just decided to try it again one day. And then that went well. So we did it again and again. And so after a few times, we thought, oh, okay, this is a series. And so we kind of came up with some rules of engagement for ourselves. It's always good. I have trouble working without some sort of framework, like I need a deadline or I need a theme or something. So we came up with a framework. And so the women we feature have to be dead, hence Dead Feminists. And we didn't want to just talk about women's issues in the sense of, oh, women are awesome or men are bad. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to talk about current issues, and we also wanted to find quotes that were inspirational for everybody or talked about issues that applied to everybody and not just women, or even issues that might be seen as women's issues but that actually have ramifications for all of society. So we really wanted to be broad with our broadsides. And if you're not familiar with that term broadside, it's sort of the great grandmother of the poster. It's an early form of mass communication, and it has always been political since the very beginning. I mean, Martin Luther worked on the Reformation by putting broadsides on church doors. So it's always had a link to the political world.
And just any thought about, as you've gone forward, about the message being as political as it is?
Well, I think when we started, it wasn't the term social justice was not used with such frequency in 2008, at least by us. And so I think that has definitely changed. And the other important consideration for us was once we wanted to talk about a political issue, and we wanted to use other women's words to support this. So figuring out how to mesh those two things, and being really reactive to whatever was unfolding politically, whether it was healthcare or immigration, that we could quickly pluck this text from history, use a historic method to create them, combine Chandler's illustration, and continue to represent different women throughout history, and maybe throw in some voices that people weren't familiar with. All those elements sort of come together, and we just finished our 31st broadside. So.
Yeah, I think another thing for us was the fact that when we started, we were really frustrated. So in 2008, Pinterest didn't exist. There were lots of things with inspirational quotes on them, but it wasn't like now you can go online and type in, I don't know, Eleanor Roosevelt quote and get all kinds of quotes, most of which are erroneous and not said by her at all, and find some sort of inspirational image with them. But that was not the case in 2008. And the things that you'd see out in the world, like books or, I don't know, bookmarks or postcards or whatever that had, or epitaphs to books that had, or epigraphs, I'm sorry, to books that had inspirational quotes, they were frequently quotes by white dead men. And we thought, come on, this is ridiculous. So we wanted to kind of contribute to the record and add more women's voices to this barrel of quotes that our society is pulling inspiration from.
Move beyond, live, love, laugh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I should show some of them now, and we can sort of talk through. So bear with me if you are watching this. This is my first time doing a screen share in this program. And if you are listening to this as a podcast later, go to our website and you can find the images there. So 1 second. Let me pull up. Oh, let's see, go backwards here. All right, so I think this was the first one we have. So can you just sort of talk us through what we're seeing on the screen now, and what the inspirations were?
Sure. The image on the left is our broadside. This is from 2012, and it's called Love Nest. We feature a quote by Emma Goldman, who was an anarchist. And the issue that we're talking about here is marriage equality. Now, we've done more than one broadside about marriage equality, but like many of the issues we talk about, it just keeps coming up again. So this is from 2012. The quote is, "The most vital right is the right to love and be loved," Emma Goldman. The images on the right kind of show some of the inspiration behind the imagery. Emma Goldman was a famous anarchist. She was inspired by the Haymarket riots in Chicago, which in 2012 was a little bit of an obscure reference, but all of a sudden, after what has happened in 2020, it's not so obscure anymore, and people are referencing this all the time. Emma Goldman was a highly divisive figure in her time, as you can see by the newspaper cartoon here, where she's depicted with a noose. People really hated her. We also kind of make the joke a lot that if we were to bring all of the dead feminists that we featured together for a dinner party, Emma Goldman would be the one who's the party pooper, that would be the one saying that's not funny when someone cracks a joke, or she'd be the one getting into arguments with somebody off in the corner. So she was really divisive in her time, and she still is, I think. But we wanted to reference her words because they really get to the heart of the matter, which is of this issue, which is loving who you love and having your family how you want to have your family. So we're looking at Russian nesting dolls, which are that come from the culture that Emma Goldman was born into in Russia. We thought about the diversity nested into every family. Every family has people in it who might surprise you, who might lead lives that you don't know about, or love people that you may not have thought they would. So that was kind of what we're getting at with this piece.
So this is mostly off topic, but I watched the Murdoch Mysteries. I don't know if anyone watches this. It's a Canadian show set in Toronto around 1900, and Emma Goldman is a recurring character, which I have to admit is the only reason I really know who she is. But I need to learn more about her because yeah, she's a fascinating figure.
This was a big conversation starter, this piece. As it turned out, people who wanted to have conversations with us about us didn't even bring up the marriage equality. It's like that was not what they were concerned about. People were either coming out of the woodwork and saying, oh my God, I'm such an Emma Goldman fan. I named my daughter Emma.
Yes.
We were in this anarchist society when we were in college, down in Evergreen State College in Olympia. I mean, all of these stories. Or we'd have people like my very religious aunt who would say, I'm very concerned. Are you anarchist? And I think she was more shocked when I said, no, Auntie, don't worry. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a socialist. So
I love it. All right. Should we move on to the next one then?
Jessica, you want to take this one?
I'll give it a try. We decided to focus on Fannie Lou Hamer. The quote reads, "Nobody's free until everybody's free." She's more well known for the quote, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired."
Right.
Folks misquote her for using that, but she really inspired us in terms of getting out the vote in just an amazing way. And I love this incorporation Chandler did with the sunflowers for Sunflower County, where she was raised. And then in terms of the artwork, it's hard to tell on the computer screen, but you can see the nobody's free receding behind and in front of the stems of the sunflowers. And then we used, I think, a metallic gold to kind of make it pop a little bit. But Fannie's super inspiring woman, and she was kind of one of those women on our list that we really wanted to present, and it worked out to be really timely with all the election shenanigans, a word that I've been hearing a lot lately, and I don't like how it's been taken away from us.
Yeah.
Chandler, you want to add anything?
I think so. We came out with this in 2018, so talking about the midterm elections, and there's kind of a subtext to it too that's not really it's not the main focus of the piece, but a tidbit about Fannie Lou Hamer's life. She was subjected to a lot of violence in her life for her political views, for being Black, for trying to register voters in her state of Mississippi. But also when she was younger, she was subjected to a hysterectomy without her consent or knowledge. And that practice in Mississippi was so rampant and so prevalent that it became nicknamed a Mississippi appendectomy. So we also that was in our minds when we did this piece as well, thinking about freedom on all these different levels and what women are subjected to. And this is all reared up again, talking about forced hysterectomies perpetrated against the women who are in custody right now by ICE. So
Right.
there's so many layers to these pieces, many that we intend and then many that we don't intend and come up later to talk about. This is one. So
I'm gonna jump in because Rachel Carson was on our list for a very, very long time as an inspiring and environmental writer. And after the oil spill, I brought this very, very long quote to Chandler, and right away she's like, "No way, it's way too long."
My hands gonna fall off.
And then she hit it out of the park. It's such a beautiful piece. And the details here, she captured so much wildlife and a lot of endangered wildlife. And then there's some details besides the two colors, the little bit of pink is all hand colored. So there's opportunities we have with our work to just kind of keep it fresh and add some amazing detail each time.
I love these colors too.
Thank you. We were going for kind of a sand and sea thing, but also in the Gulf of Mexico after the 2010 oil spill, the tar balls and the oil slicks that were washing up on the shore were that sandy beige color. So it kind of transforms from this typical sandy beach color to this thickly oil spill color. Also, this is a good example of, people send us suggestions all the time for people we should feature, and we kind of keep a list going. We have kind of an informal folder that we chuck things into, but things change. And I don't even remember what we were planning to do, but when the oil spill happened, we realized we've got to talk about this right now. And this happened again, as you'll see in a moment when you get to it, but our most recent broadside is the same thing. We changed tack at the last moment.
And I think that might be the next one we have here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so this is a perfect example. So this is our latest broadside. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not on our list of women we were watching. This was on purpose because we didn't want to jinx anything and we wanted her to live forever. And we also hated the fact that our system is set up such that we have to hope for one woman to live forever to preserve the rights of 330 million people. It is ridiculous. So we were wishing her well with all of our hearts for so long. And then, of course, that reality stepped in, and she's human like everybody else. And when she passed away in September, people immediately started emailing us. We got a flood of emails from people saying, "Are you going to do Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Are you going to do RBG?" And at first, I don't know about Jessica, but I resisted at first because
you resisted hard.
I resisted hard. Part of it is I'm contrary, and I was like, you can't tell me what to do. But also, I was so worried about, I didn't want to do a cash grab. I didn't want to cash in on her death. And that was really important. But as Jessica said at the time, like, if we're ever going to do her, it's got to be now. It's so important. And we are so frightened for our democracy and our court system and our rights. We've got to do this now. And
it also ties into us being consistently reactive, and it felt like this is what we have to talk about right now. Yeah.
Years ago, a bookseller referred to us as the Law and Order of letterpress. We were like ripped from the headlines. So he was haunting me. But so this, once I came around, I really got into it. It took me a little while, but I started researching it. Part of the reason why I also resisted was because so many other artists have done such incredible work about RBG. and specifically about her lace collars. And I thought, well, what can we possibly add to this conversation that has not been said already? And I started researching her collars, and she has many of them. She had many, many collars, and each one was imbued with meaning and symbolism, like historic textiles so often are. And so I fell down this rabbit hole of researching historic textiles. And I'm a textile person myself. I knit and embroider, so I have a link to this world. And there's so much symbolism in there, and there was so much possibility for turning the linear quality of thread and textiles into a line drawing. And it kind of, once we finally got started, it really just kind of took on a life of its own. So the whole design, it's hard to see in this little reproduction, but the whole design is all done with one continuous line, the way textiles are made of one continuous thread, or at least many textiles are. So it's all forms of lace making that it's referencing here. So tatting, knitted lace, bobbin lace, and bobbin lace is a huge tradition going back in many, many cultures. And the quote is, "We have the oldest written constitution still in force in the world," and it starts out with 3 words: "We the people." And "We the people" is the same handwritten calligraphy font, if you will, the script style of the actual Constitution. If you look at the Constitution, it's that same style. And it really lent itself to looking like bobbin lace. And so Jessica had the idea of lace as a safety net to represent our social safety net, and how not only is it woven by us, by us creating this government over 200 plus years, but also it is fragile. It's both strong and fragile, and it is currently holding on by a thread. So there's so many great textile puns in here, for one thing. There's such great fodder for this. But we came out with this print just a little over a week ago, and it sold out in 5 hours online. So it was crazy. We've never had a response like that before. So I guess you were right. We did.
We did have a lively discussion about the title. We love to be punny with the titles, and we were flying back and forth with ideas. And so we finally put it to vote on social media. So people could either choose "Weave the People" or what was the other one?
Selvage Our Democracy.
Salvage Our Democracy.
It's a more hoity-toity one, but
So, I was just going to say that when I saw you doing the voting, I thought that was something new and different for sure. I mean, I thought it was a good idea. Yeah. I know we
anxious to vote. We are waiting to vote. And so any kind of voting was good.
Yeah. And it was direct democracy. None of this electoral college nonsense.
Right. Speaking of voting, and we may not get to everything we want to talk with you about today, but can you share with us, given the deep divide among women, particularly white women, in this election, how you see your work relating to that going forward?
We've actually talked a lot on that topic with challenges of being white women trying to talk about issues of racial justice, and do we feel comfortable doing that? No, actually, comfortable is not the right word. Is it okay to do that? Are we the best voices to be doing that? And in talking about it, we really kept revisiting the idea of our audience is mostly white women, honestly, and so I think they want to hear it. They want to talk about it. They feel like they need some sort of inspiration. And I think we carry a heavy load in terms of the research that we do and the depth of the content. It's not just pretty. There's a lot of information in these prints and in the blog posts that Chandler writes. So I think we're educating too.
Right. No question.
I think also 2016 was really a shift for us, as it was for many, many people, many artists, many people in general in the country. That was when we published our book. And we published that book right before the election, like a month before
Right.
the election. And at the time we had written it with the hope that we'd be celebrating our first woman president. And of course, that's not what happened. And since then, the book has continued to be a very popular thing. It's continuing to sell even 4 years later. And I think it's because the book has kind of become a roadmap to where we go from here. And I mention this because before that point, our broadsides were much more general in focus for the most part. There were a few where we kind of took the gloves off a bit. We did a broadside about Gwendolyn Brooks, the Chicago poet, and that was back in 2011. And we were talking, or maybe 2010 even, and we were talking about systemic racism then, and we felt really like fish out of water. Like, are we allowed to say these things? Are we allowed to call this out? And that actually is still one of our most popular postcards to this day. But after 2016, we stopped working in veiled metaphors. We stopped working with more, I guess, uplifting general quotes, and we started being more explicit. We started being more angry with our prints, and we started calling it as we see it. And I think, unlike with Gwendolyn Brooks, when we were a little afraid of being misunderstood or saying the wrong thing, this time now we're like, you know what, we're going to say this and get on board or go ahead and unfollow.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, and I think we did a broadside about Frida Kahlo, and this was in 2017 when ICE was just starting to round people up, and things had not yet gotten where they are now. But we did this sort of Hieronymus Bosch like jumble illustration at the bottom of white people doing terrible things to their Latino neighbors, and Trump is in there with his tiny hands, and there's a whole bunch of people wearing red hats standing in for white hoods. And at the time I thought, am I being overly dramatic? Is this a bit much? Am I laying it on a bit thick? And now I look at it and I'm thinking, God, this is not strong enough. Why didn't we should have been more strident with this. So I think that's been a major shift for us of not being afraid to speak up. And I think it's our duty to speak up, especially since we are still, for the most part, we're mostly talking to white women. That's still the majority of our audience. So since the higher percentage of white women voted for Trump in 2020, even in 2016, I hope they're listening, because we have a lot of talking to do. And I think the white women who are with us also have that responsibility to leave our work out of this. I think we all have this responsibility to talk to the white women in our lives and say, hey, what are you doing?
There's so much more we could talk about, but I think this is a perfect place to conclude tonight's discussion. I hope you'll come back so we can explore. We had a long list of questions and ideas to talk to you about, but you're right. We need to come together and work together and have frank art that helps us find the way. So thank both of you.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I put a link to your website, but are there other ways you'd like people to make sure they can find your work?
We're on Instagram at Dead Feminists. That's probably our biggest social media presence. And all of our information about our work and our book is on our website, deadfeminist.com. And if you go to the contact page there, you can sign up for our mailing list to be the first to know when we come out with new broadsides.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.